Good evening and welcome to the Capitol Report on NTD Television. I'm Steve Lance. Coming up, President Trump says the U.S. will set the price. That's if a trade deal with China doesn't come through. Plus his new executive orders targeting what he describes as ideological overreach in schools. An upcoming study on autism that RFK Jr. says is the first of its kind. We'll dive into the update from the National Institutes of Health. Trump closing up a loophole for tariffs on low-value shipments from China and Hong Kong. We'll have analysis on the full story behind cheap goods coming from China.
This is Capitol Report, live from our global headquarters in our nation's capital. Here's Steve Lance.
President Trump says it's okay if we don't make a deal with China and that the United States will set the price if a fair deal doesn't come through. Joining us now live is NTD's White House correspondent, Iris Tao. Good evening, Iris. You've been at the White House all day. What's the latest on tariffs?
Good evening to you as well, Steve. So inside the Oval Office just now, President Trump again talked about his tariff policy with China, saying that if we don't make a deal with China, we're going to just set the price or set the tariffs, and that's going to happen over the next couple of weeks. He asked that countries, including China, can make a determination themselves about whether or not they want to do business with the U.S., and it's okay if they don't. Watch.
I think so. Over the next 2-3 weeks, we'll be setting the number. And we're going to pick, could be for China too, could be for China. Well, right now it's 145%. That's very high. It got there because of the fentanyl. They're sending, massive amounts of fentanyl into our country and killing a lot of people. Probably 200,000.
And President Trump says that the U.S. and China are having direct contact every single day when it comes to trade negotiations, though there's no sign yet that he has had that direct phone call with China's Xi Jinping. And Trump today also criticized China again for ripping the U.S. off, for example, for making U.S. companies move overseas and making U.S. plants also move outside of the U.S. He says he's trying to reverse this trend at a speed that nobody had seen before. Meanwhile, he also says that the U.S. is working well with other countries when it comes to trade negotiations. He says he's talking with Canadians, a new prime minister, that they will have a deal with Canada, adding that India, to his understanding, will lower their tariffs on the U.S. Steve.
Iris, the Russia-Ukraine war continues to drag on. The president talked about this today. Tell us what he said.
Sure. So the president today also commented on the ongoing war, saying that he actually thinks that the U.S. has to deal already with Russia, but it turns out that Ukraine is the more difficult one to deal with. Let's watch a clip of him talking about Russia and Ukraine today. Watch.
I think Russia is ready, and a lot of people said Russia wanted to go for the whole thing. And I think we have a deal with Russia. We have to get a deal with Zelensky, and I hope that Zelensky, I thought it might be easier to deal with Zelensky. So far it's been harder, but that's okay. It's all right. But I think we have a deal with both. I hope they do it because I'm looking to save. And, we spend a lot of money, but this is about a lot of humanity.
Meanwhile, this afternoon, in a Truth Social post, President Trump criticized Ukraine's Volodymyr Zelensky for making a comment that Ukraine won't recognize Russia's occupation of Crimea, which happened back in 2014. Trump says Zelensky's comments are making it more difficult to settle the war. And it comes as Vice President J.D. Vance is also saying that the U.S. is ready to walk away from peace talks if neither side comes to an agreement. And this week, Trump's special envoy Steve Witkoff is in Russia to talk with Putin for the fourth time as the U.S. is focused on talking with Russia. And of course, today, President Trump in the Oval Office also signed new executive orders actually targeting the education system inside the U.S. And that's including, for example, an EO to boost AI use in America's classrooms, as well as in order to boost the quality of education at HBCUs. There's another order, meanwhile, targeting DEI for accreditation systems inside higher education realm. Here's what Trump said about it. Watch.
One in their class in a high school someplace in New Jersey or in Mississippi, they can't get into the best schools. What is that all about?
Yeah, and I think that gets to your policy, sir, of meritocracy, that we should be looking at those who have real merit to get in.
And we also just talked to Secretary of Education Linda McMahon here at the White House. She told us that in addition to that, the education system, as well as Trump's administration, is also trying to eliminate DEI content across classrooms in the U.S. Watch.
We want to make sure that students are admitted into colleges based on merit, and we want to make sure that DEI courses are not being taught.
And when it comes to her task of dismantling the Department of Education, as Trump at the beginning told the public that he's trying to do, the Secretary of Education told us that they don't have an exact timeline of doing that just yet, but they're in the process of returning that power of education back to states and parents. Back to you, Steve.
NTD's Iris Tao live at the White House. Thank you, Iris. President Trump's tariff policies are expected to reduce the national deficit this year. It's according to the International Monetary Fund's report today. It's predicting a 0.8% fall based on the expected higher revenues from the tariffs. Although it also said if high tariffs dampen the U.S. economy, that could offset gains from tariff revenues. The IMF also recognizing the uncertainty of how much the U.S. will take in, which could be less due to the current 90-day pause. The second-ranking Democrat in the Senate plans to retire at the end of his term. In a video on X today, Illinois Senator Dick Durbin saying it was time to pass the torch.
People of Illinois have honored me with this responsibility longer than anyone elected to the Senate in our state's history. I'm truly grateful. Right now, the challenges facing our country are historic and unprecedented.
Dick Durbin, the Senate Democratic whip, has served in the House, in Congress since 1996. At 80 years old, he is the fourth Senate Democrat to choose retirement over re-election. A growing number of new Democratic candidates under the age of 40 are launching campaigns to unseat their party's incumbents in the House of Representatives, those in blue districts around the country. Democratic Senators Brian Schatz, Amy Klobuchar, and Patty Murray are reportedly considered potential candidates for the Senate Democratic whip position. The NIH study on autism will take longer than initially indicated. The director says they need large samples of data to determine the causes. NTD correspondent Jason Blair reports.
NIH Director Jay Bhattacharya says that the study looking into the causes of autism will take a little longer than the projected September date by Secretary of Health Robert F. Kennedy Jr. Bhattacharya says that he thinks preliminary results will be pulled out within a year. The NIH will be leading the project that is expected to be formally announced within 2 weeks.
We're going to announce a series of new studies to identify precisely what the environmental toxins are that are causing it. This has not been done before.
Bhattacharya says that he thinks to answer the question of why autism is rising, there needs to be large samples of people. He says that they'd like to, quote, get access to the medical records of a large portion of the American population, and these records would be a very important part of the study. Dr. Bhattacharya says the reason that autism is rising is a question that is at the front of the minds of so many parents across the country worried about their kids. And yet, scientific progress on this has been slow because scientists are frankly scared to ask the question. Bhattacharya said that the budget for the study has not been set yet. And Health Director Robert F. Kennedy Jr. says that the Health Department will be restoring their Freedom of Information Act or FOIA offices.
And we're going to try to get as close as we can to total transparency.
The HHS told NTD sister media, The Epoch Times, that these cuts were part of streamlining operations and improving efficiency, and that the FOIA offices within the agency did not communicate with each other or report to the department.
The papers that we produce in this agency do not belong to us. They belong to the American people.
Reporting in Washington, D.C., Jason Blair, NTD News.
Treasury Secretary Scott Bessent calling on the International Monetary Fund and World Bank today to refocus on their core mission of economic stability and development. Basant focused in on China and the impact of its activities on the global economy.
Recent data shows the Chinese economy tilting even further away from consumption toward manufacturing. China's current economic model is built on exporting its way out of its economic troubles. It's an unsustainable model that is not only harming China, but the entire world.
Treasury Secretary Basant went on to say that treating China, the second largest country in the world, as a developing country is absurd. In addition to pushing for more pressure on China, Basant urged the IMF to reprioritize the world economy. The Treasury Secretary denouncing the World Financial Organization for devoting, quote, disproportionate time and resources to work on climate change, gender, and social issues. Basant added, quote, mission creep has knocked these institutions off course. As President Trump's trade war continues with China, the United States plans to cancel the tariff exemption on low-value shipments coming in from China and Hong Kong. What is the real story behind Chinese-made products? To discuss, we have Derek Lossing, founder of Cirrus Global Advisors. Derek Lossing, thank you so much for joining.
Thanks for having me.
Of course, we hear a lot about the tariffs on China right now, but what we don't really hear much about are how these small packages are currently exempt, something called de minimis, from tariffs, but not for long. Next month, the United States plans to cancel the tariff exemption on those low-value shipments. Why is the United States canceling this? How big of an impact might it have? And are Chinese companies using it to perhaps circumvent tariffs?
Yeah, so today Chinese companies, as well as some American importers, are using this kind of for their international supply chain. This has really taken off. We're looking at 4 million packages a day coming into the United States with de minimis, is what CBP reports. And what you can do is you can take an order from China and move it in under $800 to a US consumer and not pay any of the duties and taxes, right? So this new supply chain, TikTok Shop, Temu, Shein, they're all using this supply chain to move goods directly from China right to the US consumer. And there's really no tariff that's being paid on any of those goods. So it's important as we raise tariffs for China to also take out this exemption for these low value goods.
Your firm estimates that this may cost air cargo companies, that sector at large, $22 billion over the next 3 years. Tell us what factors you considered in that estimate and ultimately how the airline industry may adjust.
Yeah, that's right. $22 billion over the next 3 years. And that's really driven by a number of things. De minimis going away, this low value clearance going away, combined with a higher set of tariffs, whether those tariffs are 145%, 125%, or even some amount. That means the cost of these goods are going to go up, right? So the days of ordering a $12 pair of jeans from China and not paying any duties and taxes, those are going to, just the total volume is going to reduce. And what we're really seeing is, there's dozens of aircraft that are dedicated, whether that's UPS or FedEx or Chinese cargo airlines, that are moving goods every day. We're estimating about 2.2 million parcels a day coming in de minimis from China, right? And as that demand evaporates, that's about 50% of the goods coming in from China via airplanes. Those airplanes need to be redeployed else places in the world. And we really see global yields in the air cargo industry falling as a result of this. Now, of course, if the tariffs are reduced to something much lower, that in turn means that there won't be as great of an impact to the air cargo business. So we're really monitoring what that new tariff level combined with the de minimis going away is on May 2nd.
Now, it's no secret that many of these cheap goods coming from China are often manufactured in poor labor conditions, even by prisoners of conscience. There's a very well-known movie called Letter from Masanja. That's the name of one of China's most brutal labor camps. Highly recommend viewers to check it out. But the prices tend to lure American consumers who don't know the full story. Could this ultimately move prices on Temu, Shein, these Chinese platforms and the like, and perhaps start to dissuade consumers?
Yeah, undoubtedly the prices are going to go up, right? So on top of the tariff, the customs clearance is going to go up. The cost for customs clearance is going to go up today. Because it's coming in de minimis, it's effectively just an electronic transaction, and it's almost the customs clearance is nothing. And tomorrow there will be a formal clearance. And what that's going to do is it means that much more data needs to be submitted to the US government. There's going to be much more inspections on the goods coming in. And ultimately, the prices of goods, there's a lot of estimates that are out there, but you could see, people that are buying very cheap goods direct from the factories in China, where their $20 order turns into $35, as much as $45 for that exact same order, right? And so what we think is there will be a reduction in demand. And to your point, Steve, there is a lot of insights that we've gained over why Temu can price so low, right? So, for American consumers, oftentimes they don't realize the impact of what they're buying, why something that's half the price of what you can buy it at Walmart, what that maybe is the reasons that occurs in China.
Derek Lossing, really appreciate your insights. Thank you.
Thanks, Steve.
And turning our attention now to the state of New Jersey, firefighters still battling the Jones Road wildfire, reaching 17 square miles, which could grow to become the largest fire in that state in over 20 years.
We've truly averted a major disaster. Now, this wildfire is not under full and complete control. The cause of the fire itself remains under investigation. Thankfully, no residential structures were lost. We did lose one commercial structure. Some outbuildings were also affected and several vehicles as well. And around 5,000 residents were under either mandatory or voluntary evacuations. And those evacuation orders have been lifted. Again, thanks to the great work of all of
The fire is no longer threatening homes and is 30% contained as of now. New Jersey's acting governor has declared a state of emergency in Ocean County, where the fire broke out on Tuesday morning. By Tuesday night, some 3,000 people were forced to evacuate their homes. Part of the Garden State Parkway was closed down. All evacuation orders are now lifted, and the parkway is reopened in both directions. Fire officials reported one commercial building was destroyed, along with some vehicles. Officials are investigating the cause of the fire, as parts of southern Jersey are in moderate to severe drought. Coming up, Border Czar Tom Homan says there have been 68,000 illegal immigrants arrested in the United States, with more to come. The latest on this and efforts to block their swift removal under the Alien Enemies Act. How will President Trump's executive orders impact higher education? We'll discuss what could come next with Sarah Perry, legal fellow at the Federalist Society, when we return.
What has lasted 5,000 years was once almost lost. Now, the world awaits the divine culture's return.
Hi friends, Richard Karn here. Now I'm known as the guy who can fix just about anything, but the technology in most appliances requires very special training to fix. My point is, even I know when I've met my match, and that's why my family has Choice Home Warranty. So we won't get stuck with high-priced repairs.
Choice Home Warranty covers over 25 major home systems and appliances. That's your AC, heating, plumbing, kitchen and laundry appliances, and so much more.
Imagine for less than a cup of coffee a day, Choice Home Warranty can help protect you from expensive major system and appliance breakdowns that your homeowner's insurance doesn't cover. But you have to call now before it's too late.
Every homeowner should have Choice Home Warranty. Your homeowner's insurance is not going to cover your appliances.
Washing machine, dryer, refrigerator, air condition. If I had any issues arise, they were able to take care of it immediately.
Now, homeowner's insurance won't protect you when your home's major systems and appliances break down due to normal wear and tear. But Choice Home Warranty will. They can help cover repairs and replacements.
Choice Home Warranty is the best warranty we've ever used. It would save you so much money in the long run.
Hey, I'm not the only one raving about Choice Home Warranty. They were named a Best Home Warranty Company and Best Claim Service by U.S. News 360 Reviews.
Call Choice Home Warranty now and get access to a nationwide network of over 15,000 technicians and the latest appointment setting technology so you'll know when they're on their way.
If I have an issue with an appliance or something around the house, I just call up Choice Home Warranty and I don't have to worry about that.
So, do what this old DIYer did and call Choice Home Warranty now before something breaks down. Tell them I sent you and get your first month free.
Call Choice Home Warranty before it's too late and get protection for your heating, AC, plumbing, kitchen, and laundry appliances, and more. Call for your free quote today. Call in the next 5 minutes and get your first month free. 800-360-6782. 800-360-6782.
Looking to refresh the style in your home? Here at Mathis Home, we can help you find exactly what you need during our spring style event. Whether you're looking for rustic farmhouse, classic, or modern and eclectic, we have all the latest looks that will leave your home feeling brand new. Whatever your style, we know that we can help you find it at the lowest price. Because not only do we want you to feel good in your home, we know that to earn your business, our prices have to be the best. So come to the spring style event at your furniture superstore, Mathis Home.
And welcome back to the Capitol Report. I'm Steve Lance. So how will President Trump's executive orders impact education? We're happy to have with us Sarah Perry, Vice President and Legal Fellow of Defending Education at the Federalist Society. It's great to have you with us. Today, President Trump signing an executive order to overhaul the higher education accreditation system, aiming to hold colleges accountable and ensure campuses free from unlawful discrimination, ideological overreach, etc. What do you make of this order, and what impact do you think it might have?
I think the impact is going to be significant and very welcome. In fact, these accreditors have been sort of exercising outsized influence in American higher education for many, many years. In fact, they have been pushing DEI, diversity, equity, and inclusion initiatives for some time. And the president has deemed this to be the accreditation process, his stealth weapon. Accreditation comes through the Higher Education Act of 1965, and the Department of Education can cherry pick, essentially approve those accreditors who are suited to assess and evaluate higher education rigor and academic excellence. The problem is, because most of these are private, non-governmental organizations, they can infuse whatever worldview they want. So, for example, the American Bar Association now requires, in order to approve ABA law schools, 2 credits at least in diversity, equity, and inclusion, and implicit bias before an individual can graduate from an ABA-approved law school. That means that those individuals are required to take that type of education assessment, and they are going to go into law firms, law jobs that are also hiring them based on whether or not they have this DEI training. It's the same for medicine. It's the same for teaching certifications. And so reevaluating exactly what qualifications the Department of Education is granting and approving for private accreditors, I think is a welcome development, because really that provides nothing but increased excellence and academic rigor for higher education in all programs across the country.
Your organization, Defending Education, tracked down more than $300 million in donations to DEI, diversity, equity, inclusion programs throughout institutions. That primarily covers the years from 2021 to up until this point right now, with a few exceptions. How will President Trump's executive orders impact this type of cash flow?
I think they're closely aligned. And what we discovered is after the George Floyd riots, we saw an increase and push for DEI, race essentialism, essentially, in fundraising through these particular grant programs. 148 institutions in 44 states nationwide. It really was a surge in these types of discriminatory programs dedicated explicitly to race or national origin. And we're keeping very much in line with what the Department of Education, with the White House, wants specifically for American education, which is the elimination of political ideology, the elimination of race discrimination, and a return to educational excellence. We've seen nothing but a downward slide just for all the money that we've expended, billions of dollars, $3 trillion since the Department of Education's institution in 1979, and we have nothing but abysmal National Association of Education Placement scores to show for it. We are somewhere within the K through 12 grades between 30% in English literacy and 27% in math literacy. That has to change. These children are going on to higher education where they are borrowing more money, getting less return on investment. And as of the year 2021, only 64% of American college children were graduating with the degrees that they had taken out federal funding in forms of student loans and Pell Grants for. That has got to change. I am excited. I am encouraged. We are, as an organization, to see that this Department of Education and this White House are serious about academic excellence, and they want to eliminate political ideology in all its forms.
What would your message be, or what would you say to some, say some minority folks out there who have experienced discrimination and may feel as though these DEI programs were there to offset some of those discriminatory things that may have happened to them?
I would say we hearken back to the progenitors of the civil rights movement in the 1960s, including Martin Luther King Jr., who said, "It is my dream for my children that they are desired to be judged by the content of their character and not the color of their skin." Civil rights law works for all Americans, whether they are Asian or Jewish, whether they are white or African American, and we cannot pick sides in race debates or give preferential privileges to individuals based on their race perspectives or their nationalities. We saw the Supreme Court strike this down 2 years ago in Students for Fair Admission versus Harvard and Students for Fair Admission versus University of North Carolina. They said eliminating race discrimination means eliminating all of it. And I think that's something that benefits all American students, no matter what their race is.
Now, it does appear that there are efforts from universities to circumvent the Trump administration's policy on DEI-related initiatives. Can you give us a few examples of this?
We have excellent researchers. We've discovered actually more than 413 universities or university programs related to diversity, equity, and inclusion, these types of race discriminatory programs that have been rebranded or have gone underground. They've been hidden, they've been given different names, they have been renamed, or their qualifications have been different, but they are essentially the exact same programs. This is important, I think, for the public to recognize that these discriminatory programs are continuing in force, but they are doing so under the radar. And it's our job at Defending Education, and our researchers are working fast on this project to essentially prevent the rebranding of these types of discriminatory programs. We filed, for example, a federal civil rights complaint against the University of California, Berkeley over its environmentalist of color scholarship, saying explicitly preference was going to be given to Black or Indigenous people in the granting of a 4-year stipend in the environmental study program. Well, that again is federal funding that is doled out on the basis of one's individual race. The Supreme Court has already said that's unconstitutional and a violation of federal civil rights law. They have rebranded it since then, but we're going to be keen to determine whether or not they have actually eliminated race discrimination in federal funding programs. That will, in the end, be the essential calculus for DEI initiatives in the United States.
Sarah Perry, appreciate your perspective. Thank you.
Thanks so much.
Border czar Tom Homan says the United States now has the most secure border in the nation's history, saying this while giving an update on the number of detained illegal immigrants and legal efforts to prevent them from deportation. NTD's Washington correspondent Jack Bradley has more from the White House.
Every time we arrest one of these people, remove them, the country gets that much safer.
President Trump's border czar Tom Homan says 68,000 illegal immigrants have been arrested in the U.S. over the past 3 months. He says that Trump's border policies are saving lives and making America safer.
Today, as I'm talking to you, we have the most secure border in the history of this nation.
A district judge extended a ruling on Tuesday blocking the Trump administration from using the Alien Enemies Act of 1798, which allows for the swift deportation of illegal immigrants in times of war or an invasion. And they're able to do this as one of Trump's first acts in office. He signed an executive order labeling Tren de Aragua from Venezuela and MS-13 from El Salvador as foreign terrorist organizations. Thus, they were able to be deported under the Alien Enemies Act. But this judge blocked it, saying that these illegal immigrants aren't given enough legal protections and cases are not being heard. Homan, pushing back on the ruling, says that appeals are underway.
And we're going to continue, despite what the district court says. Maybe we got to hold off on some of the deportation operations we're doing, but that's not going to stop us from seeking these people out, arresting them, and taking them off the streets of the United States while we wait for the courts to decide.
This comes as Homan and New York City Mayor Eric Adams announced on Tuesday that the DOJ charged 27 alleged Tren de Aragua members. They're hit with RICO charges. That's a first for the administration. And Homan says that these efforts show a successful collaboration between ICE and local law enforcement.
That was the first time we used RICO. The underlying offenses were sex trafficking, gun trafficking, drug trafficking, murder for hire. We seized a lot of weapons and we rescued some victims of sex trafficking.
With over 68,000 illegal immigrants in the U.S. arrested over the past 3 months, Homan says that there's much more to be done. Reporting from the White House, Jack Bradley, NTD News.
Lawmakers will be returning to Congress next week, and both parties are now touching base with their constituents ahead of a busy 2-week legislative sprint leading into Memorial Day. Our Washington correspondent, Luis Martinez, has more.
Public sentiment is everything. We are creating a mass movement, and there'll be more people participating than you've ever seen united in beating back Trump. When public sentiment wins, we win. Thank you.
That was Senate Minority Leader Chuck Schumer during a rally in New York. Democrats have been active during the congressional recess to message their key points of opposition to President Donald Trump.
This case represents a Trump defying a 9-0 decision of the Supreme Court. But we also advocated directly to the U.S. ambassador there on the ground. It's clear from our meetings with him and others that the U.S. Embassy has received no direction to begin any sort of facilitation as directed by the Supreme Court, which is incredibly concerning.
Democrats have showcased the case of Kilmar Abergo Garcia, the Salvadoran national who entered the United States illegally and was deported back to El Salvador due to ties to the foreign terrorist organization MS-13. And Republicans continue to receive pushback for the spending cuts recommended by the Department of Government Efficiency.
Elon Musk and those have been authorized by the President of the United States. Don't move. Are you ready? You ready for the other half of it? The previous president, President Biden. So you don't want to hear, you do not want to hear the full story.
And moderate Democrats continue to receive staunch criticism from their constituents who want to see Democrats do more.
I think there's this kind of toxic narrative that like democracy is a consumer product that you can buy. It's not. It's something that you make. It is something that exists in all of us coming together, engaging in civil dialogue about what it is that we really want. At the end of the day, what do we want?
We're right to be upset. That's what these are for, is so that we can discuss with our representative what our feelings are, especially if she's not doing what we voted her to do.
Republicans plan on passing a reconciliation bill, a bill to rename the Gulf of Mexico Gulf of America, and to pass a bill with $9 billion worth of rescissions or spending cuts recommended by the Department of Government Efficiency, all of this before Memorial Day. Reporting from Washington, D.C., Luis Eduardo Martinez, NTD News.
And coming up, Iran's foreign minister in China today. This ahead of a new round of nuclear talks with the U.S. We'll talk to the deputy director of the National Council of Resistance of Iran about what this meeting could mean.
Kids love it. Parents trust it. Obviously. Explore GJW Plus Kids Series and Ganjiang Campus courses led by expert educators. This is spectacular. Children will learn values like respect, responsibility, and knowledge in language, science, and more. Wow. All while having fun. Perfect. Subscribe today at GJW Plus Kids, where learning meets fun.
I'm Jonathan Lawson. If you're 50 to 85, please listen closely. The lock I want to talk to you about isn't the one on your door. It's a rate lock for your life insurance that guarantees that once you're insured, your rate can never go up at any time for any reason. Many policies you see don't have one, but you can get a lifetime rate lock from Colonial Penn. This plan was designed for people on a fixed income with coverage options that start at $9.95 a month. That's less than 35 cents a day. Your rate is locked in for life. Coverage can never be canceled, and your acceptance is guaranteed. You cannot be turned down because of your health. See for yourself. Call for an information kit and gift. Both are free with no obligation.
Call 1-800-624-6556 for your free information and your free gift. That's 1-800-624-6556. 1-800-624-6556. Call now.
Amazing grace, how sweet the sound that saved a wretch like me.
They're just young people, hungry, homeless, and vulnerable. Covenant House is helping young adults facing homelessness. We're providing safe shelter to thousands, but the need is overwhelming. Please call or go online now. With your gift of $19 a month, we'll send you this blanket as a reminder of the comfort your gift provides a young person tonight. You'll provide safe shelter, hot meals, and medical care. Call the number on your screen or go online to safeplacetosleep.org.
I tell my son, I love you every single day. Now, my dad has never said that to me. Not because he doesn't love me, but because culturally it wasn't comfortable for him. Now that he's a grandfather, he says, I love you to my son every time he sees him. My advice to all the fathers out there, forget the cultural restrictions. They grow up way too fast for you to waste even a single precious moment.
And welcome back to the Capitol Report. An update on a landmark foreign agent case, the United States versus Linda Sun. A judge announcing today that her case is scheduled to go to trial in late July. Earlier today in the Eastern District Court of New York, Linda Sun and her husband, co-defendant Chris Hu, appearing alongside their attorneys for a court conference. The couple allegedly earned millions of dollars in kickbacks from Chinese Communist Party officials. During the hearing, a prosecutor revealing that they are finalizing Chinese translations of evidence against Sun. Those include text messages, emails, and other communications between Sun and Chinese officials. These materials are expected to be made public during the trial. Sun served as New York Governor Kathy Hochul's top aide in charge of Asian affairs. In 2023, Sun was fired for misconduct without specifying the reason. Last September, federal law enforcement arresting her and her husband. They now face multiple criminal charges. Prosecutors accuse Sun of furthering Beijing's interests while acting as a New York State official. This includes allegedly disclosing internal COVID-related meetings to Chinese diplomats and blocking Taiwanese officials from meeting with two New York governors. Images show Sun had attended multiple meetings hosted by China's spy agency and other state-run entities. The Iranian foreign minister is visiting China today for consultations ahead of a new round of nuclear talks with the United States. We're joined now by Alireza Jafarzadeh, the deputy director of the National Council of Resistance of Iran and author of the Iran Threat, to break it down. Alireza Jafarzadeh, thank you so much for joining.
Thank you so much.
Iranian Foreign Minister Abbas Araghchi, he's visiting China, of all places, today for consultations ahead of a new round of nuclear talks with the United States. The visit is seen as quite significant in deepening political trust between those two authoritarian regimes. What do you expect to come out of it?
Well, I don't really expect much out of it because whatever the Iran regime does nowadays, you have to see it within the context of the biggest crisis that is facing the regime, which is the nuclear negotiations with the United States, whether it's their trip to Russia or a trip to China, meeting with them. They want to create this perception that they are dealing with the superpowers, with the big powers in the world. And the reason they're doing it because the regime has actually no leverage coming to the negotiating table. They are at their weakest point ever.
What role would you say China is playing in Iran, and what's the goal in strengthening this relationship on both sides?
Well, the Chinese have been helpful to the regime, and to some extent, they were buying the Iran regime's oil, especially when there were sanctions imposed on them. And particularly during the Biden administration, the regime managed to go around even the limited sanctions that existed because none of them were practically enforced. And China was a big help in buying, providing money to the Iranian regime. But in terms of strategic alliance, long-term economic relationship, there are no replacement for anybody. Even the Chinese understand that if the regime is not allowed in the economic market and they cannot comply with the free world, there is not going to be a major prospect for change for them. And that's why even the Chinese are looking at the outcome of the nuclear talks between the United States and the Iranian regime. Remember, whatever economic benefits the regime will get, it's not going to change the equation. It's not going to improve the economy because the economy of the Iran regime is corrupt, is controlled by the Revolutionary Guards and the supreme leader. No matter how much money you inject into the Iranian economy, it will end up in the pocket of the clerics and Revolutionary Guards, or end up supporting and funding their proxies in the region or the nuclear weapons program of the regime. So I don't read very much out of it. I think the United States should understand that these are a lot of maneuvers that the regime is doing at the same time that they're trying to see what they can get out of the negotiations.
Now, given reports that Moscow may be a destination for Iran's stockpile of highly enriched uranium, might Russia play a key role in brokering a nuclear deal?
I'm not sure what role they can actually play in this because, they haven't really been a significant part of these negotiations in the past. This time, it's basically the United States and the European nations to some extent involved in it. If Russia was really able to help the regime, they would have helped them save the biggest ally of Tehran, Assad, in Syria. They got Russia involved in 2015, 2016. That's how they saved Assad. Now, this time, in just this past December, within 11 days, the whole thing collapsed, and Russia was nowhere to be found. If they were really going to be helpful to Tehran, they would have done it there. It wasn't there. Why? Because the whole situation has changed. This regime is weak. You don't want to help a dying beast. Just keep in mind that this regime is doing everything out of desperation. They're faced with the Iranian population who want change. That's where I think the focus should be for the nuclear negotiators in the United States, that the real end to the nuclear threat of Iran or their threat in the region is an end to the rule of the clerics. And of course, that's the responsibility of the people of Iran and the organized resistance. All the U.S. need to do is to recognize this reality, recognize the right of those who want to bring down the Ayatollahs, and then you will see what a huge change that will bring, not just for the people of Iran, but for the whole region.
Excellent point, not to forget about those voices that are calling for freedom in those totalitarian countries and perhaps elevate them. Thank you again.
Thank you so much, Steve. Always a pleasure.
Coming up, the H5N1 bird flu virus mutating and spreading through American cattle. We'll discuss who's most at risk and what can be done to contain it with veterinarian Kay Russo when we return.
As we naturally age, many people are getting zero amount of this incredible and unique substance. That's when we start seeing an impact in our joints, skin, nails, and even our digestion.
People ask me, Dr. X, what is the #1 supplement I should be taking? My answer is multi-collagen protein.
People's reactions to me, people were like, what are you doing? What is going on? You look amazing. You have a glow about you.
What makes Ancient Nutrition Multi-Collagen stand out from other brands? 10 types of collagen. It's grass-fed, pasture-raised with vitamin C and probiotics. It's proven to reduce joint discomfort rapidly, continuously, and persistently. It improves the appearance of crow's feet after 4 weeks and improves skin tone after 8 weeks. And it promotes hair thickness, growth, and a reduction in hair breakage.
It has transformed everything from my hair. Like, my hair was starting to kind of just, come out, and I don't have that anymore. My skin feels amazing.
Call the number on your screen and find out how to get a free bottle when you order, plus free shipping and our 30-day money-back guarantee. And as a bonus, we will include Dr. Josh Axe and Jordan Rubin's revolutionary book, Multi-Collagen Makeover, free with your order, plus free shipping and free returns.
I have implicit trust in Dr. Axe because the plan worked. I'm living proof of it.
This is the collagen protein that is backed by clinical studies. It's what my family uses, it's what I use, and I know you're gonna benefit in a big way as well.
Love the results or get your money back. This special TV offer is not available in stores. Call the number on your screen or go online now.
There is a road laid out for me.
Boxes everywhere. And this is gonna be Addie's room.
I am blind,
You're really gonna like it.
I hope so. Yeah. I know this road is there for me. There is a long way.
First night here, but Amy seems cool.
Ways down by the river. I am blind, but I need not see.
I got this.
I know
okay.
If I'm really free, take me down to the river and wash me.
The Department of Health and Human Services is planning to phase out all petroleum-based artificial food dyes from America's food supply. What do everyday folks make of the HHS's decision to phase out these dyes? NTD's Sam Wong was out in the National Mall in D.C. to hear from the folks.
What do you think about the current health of our nation, and what kind of future are you anticipating with RFK Jr. leading the HHS?
Well, I think the current health of our nation is terrible, considering if you go to other countries in the world, they got substances that are not allowed in their food that is allowed in ours. So I think they should change that.
I mean, I get it, he's a Kennedy, but that doesn't give him any qualification for the position. I mean, science, with someone with a science background, medical background, like Fauci.
We need a change in our eating habits and everything else. So I think he's doing a good job. And we got Trump there to help him.
I think we need to get all the chemicals and things out of our food and start eating right.
I've always thought of us as having one of the better systems in the nation. Is it perfect? No. I think some of the new policy with RFK is going to hurt our overall health.
The HHS is announcing that they're going to gradually phase out food dyes, artificial food dyes in our food supply. What do you guys make of this move?
You know, as I understand it, there's ample evidence that the dyes aren't harmful. If we could go natural, that'd be great. I know there's an expediency to the artificial as well. But safety and, again, the overall health of our nation should come first.
That sounds reasonable, honestly. Food dyes, I mean, in the last few years, they've taken out different colored dyes, and that's a good thing. What Europe does in their food supply and how they regulate here, it's sort of a hands-off.
Yeah, that would be a lot safer, wouldn't it? A lot better. And I don't know about the way our children are growing up and how they've, you know, I've seen the young girls mature a lot faster. It should have never been in there in the first place.
Well, if they've done the research, that's probably what they need to do. We all want to live a little longer, don't we? We all want to live a little longer.
I think that would be great. I think that's where a lot of sickness and disease comes from things that we shouldn't be putting in our bodies. So if we could eliminate that, that would be great.
With American cattle now infected by a strain of bird flu, should we be bracing for a spike in beef or dairy prices? We're joined now by veterinarian Dr. Kay Russo, specializing in poultry and dairy, to break it all down. Dr. Kay Russo, thank you so much for joining.
Thank you for having me.
Doctor, I mean, being a veterinarian, you really have your finger on the pulse on a lot of these things that are happening right now, specifically when we're talking about the H5N1 bird flu virus, which mutates and is rapidly spreading throughout now American cattle herds. How fearful are veterinarians and yourself that it could spiral into a possible pandemic?
So we have genuine concerns about essentially the lack of control and handle we have on the virus spreading across both avian and mammalian species. Obviously, humans are at risk for this virus. I think at this point, the risk for a pandemic is still low. However, we do need to maintain a healthy risk or sense of urgency in controlling this virus in animal populations. And when we look at those at most risk, it's going to be those individuals that are directly handling these animals day in and day out. And so if we emphasize control on farms of the virus in production animal species, that'll help to mitigate some of this risk to those individuals that are working with them.
Now, as we said, this was a bird flu.
Yes.
What type of impact are you seeing now on cattle?
So we saw the virus jump from a wild bird into cows in March last year. It actually was probably circulating for a number of months before we identified it as being the quote-unquote mystery cow disease in cattle in Texas. So once we were able to identify that it was in fact H5 flu, it's helped us to characterize some of the infections in these herds, which can be variable. On some farms, they're relatively mild. On others, they're far more severe. But ultimately, we can see anywhere between 15 to 30% of the herds impacted clinically by the virus. And then there's a large degree of subclinical infections in cattle as well. And that has ultimately impacts to animal welfare. It has impacts to the productivity of the farm, and has impacts to the bottom line for producers in terms of their profitability in the face of an outbreak.
We've obviously seen the devastating impact that this flu had on chickens, as well as the supply chain when it comes to eggs, driving up the prices. Should we now be concerned or preparing for any type of spike in beef or dairy prices? And how should we be preventing the spread from cow to cow, in your opinion?
Yeah, so ultimately, just going back to your concerns about the virus in chickens, the consumers experienced an extraordinary jump in egg prices, which was directly correlated to the bird losses in both 2024 and 2025. If we look at sort of the broad implications of this virus, to give you some context, we lost about 39 million laying hens last year. 28 million of those were associated with virus spilling over from cattle back into poultry. And so this is a very intermingled web, and that has impacts on our supply chain. And consumers certainly appreciated that with respect to just not having access to eggs and also egg prices. Now, luckily, we call this a high path avian influenza in poultry because there's a high mortality rate, and we have to depopulate these farms, which again has implications on the supply chain. Luckily, in dairy cattle, while it is devastating still, we don't have to go through and depopulate these farms. We see some drops in milk production. However, the herds return to near normal production inevitably, which ultimately allows for us to not experience it as consumers as acutely at the store as compared to, say, shell eggs that we're looking to buy.
Now, as you said earlier, the most susceptible to this would be people working in close contact with some of these animals. From what I understand, there have been confirmed cases among people, most being farm workers. So the symptoms typically very mild. CDC, as you stated as well, says that the virus still poses very low risk to the general public. But the fact that it is already reaching humans with the possibility of mutations, do you think that there is a concern that this could be something that develops into a more severe disease? And what is next in the fight to control this bird flu that continues to spread?
Yep. So ultimately, it's a flu virus. And with flu viruses, we know they're really unpredictable. So they can change, and they can change fast. And so again, for me to go out and say everybody needs to, put their aluminum foil hats on and protect themselves from the next pandemic, that would be disingenuous. Really, the focus needs to be on those workers that have the highest risk of exposure to H5 in those animals that they work with. Now, the major concern is a reassortment event between essentially a flu virus coming from a cow or a bird, an H5 flu, and a seasonal flu virus that, a milker, for instance, picks up from his kindergartner that got sick at school. If we look at flu viruses, I like to liken them to card decks, and they each have their own card deck. And so if two different flu viruses infect the same person, they can exchange cards between their decks, resulting in a new flu virus that has very different properties. And so while the risk to the public is still low, those individuals are at greatest risk working at the ground level, and that's where we need to concentrate. And it starts with controlling the virus in the animals that they're exposed to and offering them services for testing and treatment if they do get exposed and infected.
Dr. Kay Russo, really appreciate you sharing your perspective. Thank you.
You're welcome.
And that is all we have for you this evening on the Capitol Report. For round-the-clock original coverage, you can visit us at ntd.com/live and download our NTD mobile app. From the nation's capital in Washington, D.C., I'm Steve Lance. Have a nice evening. See you back here tomorrow.